In Hogwarts Legacy, Sebastian's storyline is tragic, morally complicated, and built around a personal motivation that is easy to sympathize with. He wants to save his sister. While the main story is focused on ancient magic, a goblin rebellion, and other external threats, Sebastian's story is about family, desperation, and how far one is willing to go for the person they love. While smaller in scale, it is much stronger in its emotional weight. This rewrite aims to give his arc more time, context, and a stronger connection to the protagonist and larger themes of the game. Sebastian becomes one of the central figures in the story's conflict. The protagonist mirrors Sebastian in their desire to aid Anne, but the difference is that Sebastian turns to dark magic, while the protagonist turns towards ancient magic. Both aim to save her, and both are in danger of making similar mistakes. The concept of Sebastian's story is strong. A gifted, loyal, yet reckless student turning towards forbidden magic because he feels helpless to save his sister is the perfect story, and even if the concept is sound, there are issues in the execution. The first issue is that the player meets Sebastian after the tragedy has already begun. Anne has already been cursed, Sebastian is already desperate, and Solomon is already opposed. We're told how things were in the past instead of getting to experience the change for ourselves. This should feel like the loss of someone. If we know him as early as his first year at Hogwarts, we then get to see who he was and how certain parts of his personality have shifted to accommodate his new goal. The second issue is pacing. The descent into dark magic is compelling, but feels compressed since we join toward the end of the arc. By the time we join the story, he is already focused on magic that's not taught at Hogwarts. By giving each of these steps more time to breathe, the emotional progression should work better. The third issue is the protagonist. They become involved in the story, but have no real connection to the drama. They haven't grown up with the twins, and so didn't know them before the curse, and didn't watch the friendship fracture over time. Sebastian needs more foundation and focus. We need to know who he was before the curse so that we can understand how it has changed him and how his descent into dark magic changes him even more. Sebastian will be part of the protagonist's life from the very first year as one of the central members of the Golden Quartet. The protagonist, Sebastian, Ominous, and Anne. Sebastian should be first understood as a friend. He is clever, witty, competitive, charming, and constantly pushing the boundaries of what students are supposed to do. He is the student that knows the hidden passages, talks people into doing things they shouldn't, and makes trouble seem more exciting than dangerous. It should be obvious how these traits will evolve into useful ones during his later exploits. Anne and Sebastian should be siblings who challenge, tease, and protect one another. We don't want Anne to simply be the person he wants to save, but a necessary part of his life, especially after the death of their parents. Ominous helps to give the group balance. Where Sebastian may be bold and impulsive, Ominous is cautious and morally aware. While it may be something as simple as not wanting to open a locked door in the earlier years, later on his objections will become much more significant. In terms of the protagonists, Sebastian helps to give them their first real home at Hogwarts. Regardless of who the character is, meaning their background, house, etc., the Golden Quartet gives them a place to belong. These changes should make the so-called golden years of the rewrite important. Attending classes, visiting Hogsmeade, staying for the holidays, going to Quidditch matches, and ordinary school days should establish life before Anne's curse. The normality of life before the curse should show what Sebastian is later trying to restore. Sebastian's desperation, recklessness, resentment toward Solomon, fascination with forbidden magic, and willingness to cross moral lines all come from his inability to accept Anne's suffering, and the fact no one seems able to stop it. As mentioned before, we will see the children when everything is normal. However, the curse will eventually be introduced with only small signs that something is wrong. Sebastian will attempt to justify things with easy explanations, but as things worsen, his fears become harder to contain. As the ordinary hopes fail, Sebastian becomes more vulnerable to forbidden answers. The right way to go about things only continues this unacceptable state, and so breaking the rules begins to feel necessary. Sebastian starts with his motivation rooted in love, but it begins to narrow into obsession. His wanting for Anne to be free of pain is not wrong, but when his desperation overrides caution, the situation becomes far less pure. Anne's curse takes a charming, daring, loyal student and turns those traits into something potentially dangerous. The player only knew a Sebastian who could rely on Anne, but now that he no longer can, the changes are much more noticeable. Sebastian's turn toward dark magic should not happen all at once, but instead a gradual decline. He should not be eager to use unforgivable curses or ancient rituals, but as someone looking for any possible answer. As everything he tries fails, he will slowly convince himself that the forbidden answers might be the only possible ones. The first part of his search should be understandable. He reads old books, asks uncomfortable questions, challenges professors and healers, and pushes beyond the approved curriculum. He doesn't aim to become dangerous or powerful, but useful for his sister. The fall, so to speak, should occur because each next step feels easier than the previous one. Breaking curfew to search the library for books becomes sneaking into the restricted section. Reading about untaught magic becomes practicing it in secret. Hiding information from his uncle, officials from the Ministry of Magic, or professors becomes hiding information from Ominous, Anne, and perhaps even the protagonist. Each step in his descent should feel like a series of small compromises that eventually become impossible to ignore. Dark magic should be seductive and appear to offer clarity. Instead of warnings, it offers possibilities. Sebastian feels powerless because of Anne's situation, and dark magic appeals to his fear and love. Sebastian is corrupted because he loves Anne, fears losing her, and cannot accept the limits. Every choice he makes should make sense for him in the moment, and every line that he crosses can be defended. By the time he reaches the point where no one can excuse his actions, turning back might make everything seem meaningless. Sebastian's ending will feel like the inevitable result of every choice that came before. By the end of the story, Sebastian crosses enough lines that even if the player understands why he started, they may not agree with the endpoint. When the game ends, the Golden Quartet cannot return to the way it was. In some way, Anne has changed, Ominous has been hurt, the protagonist has forged their own path, and Sebastian has done the same. The exact ending depends on the choices made by the player, especially concerning their progress with ancient magic, what they decided to do with this power, their relationship with Sebastian, and how far they have encouraged or challenged him throughout the story. For example, a player that repeatedly enables him will cause Sebastian to fall further, becoming fully convinced that only those willing to act deserve to make decisions. If a player pushes back against him, there may still be a chance to reach him, but not without consequences. There is no one speech at the end that saves everything. Players that manage to save him will be because they have spent the year earning that possibility. The other characters need a voice in Sebastian's fate as well, or at the very least, strong opinions on what should be done. Anne will love Sebastian, but may become angry due to him using her as a justification for his choices. Ominous has spent the story warning Sebastian because he understands where this path can lead. He will become exhausted, torn between friendship and knowledge of what Sebastian is potentially becoming. Sebastian's ending is a mirror for the player. If Sebastian's love for Anne led him to justify using dark magic, the player must ask how that compares to their study of ancient magic. Sebastian's journey may not be watching someone else fall, but seeing an accelerated version of their own journey. Sebastian's story needs more time to develop. One of the main objectives of tutorializing the first 3 years is to show the player what Hogwarts was like before Anne's curse, to show the normality of life that Sebastian is trying to get back to, and how much it has changed since then. Being a mirror to the protagonist is another reason that Sebastian is so much more important in this rewrite. His studying of dark magic reflects the protagonist's study of ancient magic. Both wish to help and are tempted by power that seems to offer answers not found elsewhere. Sebastian's tale, ultimately, is a tragic one. While he has tremendous qualities that we see in his first few years at Hogwarts, we should understand how they can be turned into destructive ones. The goal is to allow for Sebastian to be seen in both extremes. 1, as an innocent boy who did anything to save Anne, and 2, as someone who started out like that, but began to obsess over the dark magic he swore was only for her.